Well, hello and welcome to the Meditation Hub and to King's Meditation and Mentoring. This is Michael King here, and I am just so stoked that you are here, willing to give breathwork a go and to explore how changing the way you breathe can change the way you experience life. I'm so excited to share these ridiculously simple tools and techniques with you. So, if I haven't met you before, hello, welcome, nice to meet you. Me, my wife Hannah and son Nalu run this family business where we love to teach meditation and breath-related tools and work as mentors in a one-on-one capacity in group settings, really striving to give people a deeper, richer, more fulfilling and purpose-driven sense of life. So this particular course is dedicated towards relieving your stresses so you can come more alive and more resilient. And I wanted to make an introductory video, not only to say hello, but when we get into the actual challenge, I want to just spend as much time as we can doing the actual breathwork practices. So with this introduction, I wanted to go over a couple of things that will really help when it comes time to breathing. So we're going to talk about how to sit, we're going to talk about how to breathe, and we're going to talk about the importance of belly breathing. So let's first start with sitting or laying. When I'm practicing breath work, should I sit up or lay down? And the truth is, when we're talking about breath work, it doesn't really matter. When we're talking about meditation, I always suggest that people sit up because one of the key points of meditation is to stay alert and attentive to your present experience. And when we're laying down, we often get too drowsy and sleepy and can easily drift off to sleep. But when it comes to breath work, we're actively doing something that's engaging enough that laying down doesn't often lead to sleep. And the other benefit is when we lay down, our physiology can relax more thoroughly, so we have a greater capacity to access deeper parts of the breath. Because when we're tense or tight, the breath is limited to how far it can reach into the different quadrants of the lungs. So people that have been doing breath work for quite a while prefer to sit up because they're used to it and can relax more deeply in a seated position. But if you're new, it might actually help to lay down. And then when it comes to the meditative part at the end of breath work, then you can sit up and close your eyes from there. Because breath work, believe it or not, it's not only about actively breathing and controlling your breath. There's a part of breath work that's not spoken about as often, which is just learning to watch your natural breath, learning to watch passively your body breathe. And there's this beautiful contrast between actively controlling the breath and passively watching the breath. And when we do breath work, that contrast opens up. It's like the variety or the field or the gap between those two experiences gets more distinct. And so the more you do breath work, the more you can relax. It's a wonderful thing. So lay down if it helps, and then sit up right at the end when we go into the meditative bit. Next question is one that is commonly asked. Does it matter if I breathe through my nose or my mouth? It matters a lot. Let's just say that unless specified, all breath work should be through the nose. So there's a couple of breath work techniques if we think about like the yogic practices of pranayama. There's one called Sitali Pranayama, which is a cooling breath. There's one called Mukha Bhastrika, which is an energizing breath. And they involve some aspect of mouth breathing for a very specific purpose. But 99% of the time, all breath work is done through the nostrils. And there's a few reasons why. When you breathe through the nose, the air gets warmed and humidified, gets moistened, and that leads to more oxygen absorption and easier, your body has an easier chance of absorbing the oxygen under those conditions. Your nose also filters the air. So any environmental pathogens or any allergens, anything like that you would usually breathe straight into your lungs through your mouth, Your nose has the brilliant action of filtering the air, so you have a lesser chance of breathing in bacteria and environmental toxins and things like that. When you breathe through your nose, it increases something called nitric oxide. And what that means is that you get improved oxygen delivery. You have a capacity to absorb more oxygen through the breath when you breathe through your nose. And also, it increases the amount of oxygen that goes to your brain when you breathe through the nose. And then the other thing that's really relevant to us when we're talking about reducing stress is breathing through your nose helps to belly breathe. And in a minute, we'll talk about why that's important. It helps to slow down the breath as well. Like the tendency when we breathe through the mouth is to breathe faster and shorter and shallower. And the natural tendency when we breathe through the nose is to breathe slower, longer, and deeper. So nasal breathing all the way, especially when it comes to talking about the reduction of stress. So laying down, okay, nasal breathing, big tick. Contraindication for nasal breathing. If you can't, or if you struggle to nasal breathe, purse your lips, and so it's a fine gap, so you're regulating, controlling the flow of air through tight lips. At least that's doing something in terms of the ability to slow down the breath and direct it deeper into the bottom of your lungs. But the other thing is, try your best to nasal breathe, because a lot of people don't realize, even if you've struggled with nasal breathing before, it's one of those muscles that's a use it or lose it type thing. The more you nasal breathe, the more your nostrils and sinuses open up to accommodate that habit. So if you think it's hard and you tend to breathe more through your mouth, the bummer is that your nasal cavities get smaller and smaller and tighter and tighter. So every opportunity you can, even outside of deliberate breath work, put your lips together and breathe through your nostrils as often as possible. Breathing through your nose also in and of itself reduces stress. So yeah, nasal breathing all the way. The third thing I wanted to talk about is the importance of belly breathing when it comes to reducing stress. And of course, we're not really talking about breathing into your belly. That would be impossible. If that was happening, there'd be a serious problem. But we call it belly breathing because what happens when you breathe into the lower parts of your lungs is that your diaphragm has to drop down and move out of the way. And in order for your diaphragm to drop down, your belly has to go out. So your belly goes out, so there's room for your diaphragm to drop. So there's room for the breath to go all the way down to the bottom of the lungs. So you can tell you're breathing into the bottom of your lungs because your navel moves out away from your body. It moves out. And so for this to happen, you have to relax your belly, because if your abdominal muscles are tense or tight, it's impossible for the diaphragm to drop, and then you won't be able to breathe into the lower lobes of your lungs. So in the lower 1/3 of your lungs, the bottom of your lungs, is where the parasympathetic nerve receptors are. These are the nerve receptors that help put you into a state of calm, a state of rest, a state of relaxation, a state that is the opposite of stress. If we're breathing into the upper parts of the lungs, into the ribs or the shoulders, it's really hard to reduce and minimize and eliminate stress, because that very way or form of breathing sends a message to the brain: stay alert, stay attentive, stay active. It continues or perpetuates stress. One of the other things is, as soon as we breathe into the lower lobes of the lungs and activate the parasympathetic nerve receptors, it instantly sends more oxygen to the parts of the brain that help us to reflect, to develop self-knowledge, and to be discerning. So the parts of the brain in the prefrontal cortex that enable us to look at our own experience and make better decisions, they come alive in a calm state when we're oxygenated and in a parasympathetic state. And the opposite is true. When we're breathing shallow and short and fast and we're stressed, the parts of the brain that give us intelligence shut down, and we operate from more of a default mode. We operate from a baseline of whoever we've been in the past when we've been stressed. So breathing into the belly is really important. And the interesting thing is, whenever you are genuinely deeply relaxed, you notice that you'll be breathing deeper and slower anyway. So it's taking what we naturally already do and mimicking it for a deliberate result. So I've worked with people before who, for whatever reasons, have a lot of tension in their belly and they find it hard to let go, and despite their best efforts, they keep breathing into their side ribs or their upper chest, and they're like, I can't breathe into my belly. It feels hard to be able to relax. So what you can do is lay down on your back, because if you're physiologically relaxed, if your body's relaxed, it really helps. And then put like a yoga sandbag or a couple of heavy books right across your navel, and the physical feedback of the weight of the books helps put your mind in the lower lobes of the lungs and the belly, and then you can feel if it starts to move with the breath. And when we start to breathe well, the books will rise and fall with your breath naturally, but sometimes it can help to push your belly out and draw your belly in with the breath, like you're manually encouraging what will become an automatic action. And so you get used to the feeling of it and you train yourself into what you want to happen, and it becomes more natural over time. So if you have a really tight belly and you struggle to belly breathe, then what you can do is lay on your back, put something heavy on your belly, close your eyes, breathe through your nose, slow down your breath. And even what I find helps with people to do is imagine their lungs in their mind's eye whilst they're breathing, and imagine or sense that the breath was going all the way down into the bottom of the lungs. Like if you're pouring breath into a cup, it was going all the way to the bottom. And you don't have to fill up the whole of your lungs. Focus primarily on just filling up the bottom 1/3 so your belly moves. And even when you exhale thoroughly, your belly draws in. And that mobility in the belly increases the way you belly breathe when you're in an active living state. So practicing it deliberately in breath work improves your ability to breathe effectively into your belly when you're just working or conversing or hanging out. So belly breathing, nasal breathing, and laying down. A couple of things I wanted to cover before we got into it. So tomorrow, or whenever you do this, you can dive straight into the practices, understanding those few basic initial principles of breath work, especially relating to the reduction of stress. I'm so stoked you're here. Thank you for being here once again. Go out and try laying down, belly breathing and nasal breathing for a few rounds just to get into the swing of it if you haven't done that before. And we'll start off by using the breath, shaping the breath to cultivate more calm when we get into day one. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you for lending me your ear holes, and I'll see you again very soon.